Hey everybody, Russell Westcott here from the TriUrban Real Estate team. So as you can probably tell already that this part of the webinar has been recorded because I've actually passed the baton over to myself. So thanks for the wonderful introduction, Russell. I don't know if I've ever said that before, but I'm looking forward to this. I'm in the home studio. I've got some slides and I've got some incredible information I want to share with everybody. You know what, as I mentioned, it's in the home studio, so I may have a dog bark and I may have the phone ring. You just never know. We're going to run with it and we're going to have lots of fun. So first and foremost, what I really wanted to do is I wanted to thank each and every one of you for coming on this webinar. I'm very grateful for you to take the time out of your day, out of your evening. Some of you, registered over a week in advance. I'm just honored that you've taken the time to listen to this presentation. I've got years and years of experience and I just can't wait to share with each and every one of you. And I want to honor that you've taken time out of your busy schedules, maybe away from family, and if you're maybe out in the West Coast, you're taking time away from dinner. I get that. So I'm going to play full out. So if you're interested in playing full out with me, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. So Russell, I probably mentioned how the procedure of this webinar is going to go. This part is the recorded portion. I want to make this as fairly standalone as possible that I can clip this out and maybe we can use this elsewhere. But on the live portion of the webinar, so you're on there, you can probably ask Q&A questions and you can have a lot of fun engaging in the webinar from there. So first and foremost, what we're going to cover today is we're really going to cover three things. Number one is we're going to cover a way for you to increase your cash flow. I know many of you are looking for additional revenue and additional cash flow. So that's promise number one through the three pillars of real estate. We're also going to talk about a way that you can lower your risk. Lowering your risk is actually a key thing that you can help you sleep at night. And then the final thing we want to do is we want to help you retire on your term. At the end of the day, why we're doing all this is that we can provide a lifestyle, that we can help other people, that we have goals and dreams and aspirations that we want to fulfill upon those. So real estate should help fulfill those goals and dreams and lifestyle aspirations, not take away from them. So if you are maybe a property owner and you're maybe having some properties that are dragging the cash flow down, pay attention to this presentation. It was like a breath of fresh air when I first learned the world of brand new construction properties. So today we're going to talk about the three pillars of real estate. And it's really as simple as possible. It's where you buy, what you buy, and who you rent it to. Now, some of you are going, well, geez, Russ, that isn't rocket science. That's about as simple as it gets. I'll tell you what. It is about as simple as it gets, but you'll be surprised how many people have made that huge mistake of the bad areas in town, the wrong properties, and the wrong tenant profile. I made those mistakes, and one of the upcoming webinars, I'm actually going to share with you a lot of the biggest mistakes that I have made, but it really boils down to these three pillars of real estate. Where you buy, what you buy, and who you put in it. Now, on the side on this webinar, there's actually going to be a poll. So which one do you think is the most important? Where you buy, what you buy, or the tenant you place in it? So put your vote for the survey in there. Which one do you think it is? Is it number one, number two, or number three? Yeah, you must vote. Pick which is the most important one for you. So please vote on that on the poll there. And we'll post the results for that as well. I'll tell you what, one of the things, it's a little bit of a trick question. To me, the number one thing of that we will share here shortly, but just a real quick housekeeping items on this. So as you're interacting in this webinar, we're going to be in the background. We're going to have some checklists and some research reports and some survey questions and some Q&A. If you have a question, just type it in and I'll try my best to get to it. So that's some of the housekeeping items. But in order to optimize your experience on this webinar, there's a few things I really would like you to do. So you're here, you made the investment, you've come out tonight that you want to listen to this goofy guy standing in his home studio in front of a TV screen. So I'm going to play us full out. So if you want to optimize your experience, here are a few things that you should do for optimization. Number one is I highly recommend, if you don't have a pen and paper already, grab a pen and paper, take notes, lots of notes. What you write down, you will remember more. I may actually say something intelligent. Who knows, right? I always have hope for myself too, but I might say something that might just tweak an idea or a thought process. Write it down, keep moving. Number 2 is I want you to engage on the chat boxes on this, or if you're watching to this video after the fact, comment wherever you're watching. Type in a comment, write some notes, post it on Instagram, post it on Facebook, wherever you are. Just engage. The more you engage, the more you learn. Number 3 is if you do have any questions, pop them into the Q&A box. I'll do my best to answer it. If I don't get to it, you know what? It'll be better. It'll be future material for another webinar upcoming. And then the last one I would highly recommend is that you share whatever you learned tonight with somebody else, or you teach somebody, because here's the beautiful thing about teaching somebody something you learn. You actually get the benefit of learning it twice. You get the benefit of learning it from the first time you engaged in it and learned the information from myself. The other thing you also do is you get the benefit of teaching it and you learn it again. So it's multiple levels of learning. So diving right into it, I want to get this boring stuff. This is the boring part of the presentation. Get this boring stuff out of the way. So I have a feeling many of you on this webinar, or if you are watching this, you probably know who I am, but I wanted to just give a real quick context of what gives me, the opportunity to stand in front of you, and what gives me the opportunity to capitalize on your airways, if you will, or your computer time, or your time away from your family. So I'm a real estate investor. First and foremost, I love the process of doing deals. I love transacting properties. Nothing gets me more excited, and the juices flowing. My business partner Jay and I were talking about, we're deal hounds. We love the chase of the deal. We love real estate investing. We're true real estate investors. I also love teaching. I have a passion for teaching. I've co-authored 2 books with Mr. Don Campbell and the Real Estate Investment Network. I love sharing. I love inspiring. I love encouraging, and I love coming from a place of love. That's what you can count on me for. Inspiration, encouragement, and always coming from a place of love. I'm a coach. I help coach people. I've been coaching people for the past 15 plus years in the realm of real estate, also in personal matters, on public speaking, on internet marketing, all kinds of different ways. I think I have something to share, and and I'm not afraid to voice my opinion on that. And then the last one is within real estate, I'm an expert. Sometimes it's taken me a long time to say that, but in the realm of real estate, I've accomplished a lot in the time I've picked up the shovel and learned about real estate. And you know what? Truth be told, probably within the last 1.5 to 2 years, I've learned more about real estate investing than I did probably in the last 12 to 13 years prior to that. So there's always something to learn. So that's a little bit about me, but that's not why you're here tonight. You're actually here tonight for about you. So another thing with myself is I'm also with a company called TriUrban. TriUrban Real Estate is a boutique real estate firm in the Edmonton marketplace. That's where we're starting our ventures. And you know what? We believe in brand new homes. Right? We believe all real estate investors should own brand new homes in their portfolio. We believe in matching the right property to the right investor to have a really good experience of owning a piece of real estate. And really, if you think about it, our entire goal and mandate is to set you up to win. If you're a real estate investor, our tried and true investment process, if it really comes down to the 6 key pillars. Number 1 is research. We research areas long in advance. We're looking for trends. We're looking for things that are going to happen, not things that have happened. We're looking years in advance of what's going on in the marketplace. Number 2 is we have developers on our relationship, that we work hand in glove with developers, that we actually hand select lots that make sense for real estate investors. Not every piece of property and every piece of land makes sense for investment. Because we're investors first, we actually can share those insights, and we pick those lots for you. We have a designer, an award-winning designer that will actually design the homes for you. Design the homes based upon on point, based on consumer trend, based on properties that will rent quickly, based on properties that will sell when the time comes for you to sell. We're also work with builders, what we call small tier mom and pop family-run builders, ones that you can actually talk to the owners with that, and they're master craftsmen. They've been in business for a long period of time, so you can trust their work. We actually could provide key relationships for you to help every step of the way. So if you're looking for a good mortgage broker that understands new construction process, we've got it. Lawyers to help you close on the process, we've got it. Property managers, we can help you with all those key relationships, the ones that are the best of the best within the new home construction process. And then we provide leadership, no different than like this video and this webinar we're doing right now. Education, guidance. If you need support, you need some help, and you need maybe a question answered about what's next for you, we're here to provide the leadership and the guidance. So that's why we're here. That's what we're here about. So at the end of that process of people through those 6 pillars, what you really can think about that you get is you get a research-backed property. You get it professionally designed and selected for you. You get a new construction property, and you get a peace of mind ownership experience. At the end of the day, we want to have a good ownership experience, not a nightmare ownership experience. And that's what we're here to do, is to try and make real estate investing for you easy. Okay, so enough of that formality of who we are. Obviously, we know what we're talking about, and we're masters of our craft when it comes to real estate investors and building homes that have design elements and also market appeal for homeowners. So let's get right into the presentation. So I hope you had a chance to vote of which of the 3 pillars is for you. The where you buy, what you buy, and who you put in it. Which one do you think is the most important, right? Is it where you buy? Is it what you buy? Or is it who you rent out to? So I hope you've had a chance to rent. So if you're out there, I can see you out there. Who, by show of hands, has number 1, where you buy? Number 2, what you buy? And number 3, who you rent it to? It's a little bit of a trick question, but my personal opinion, the most important of there, which is where we're going to start, is who you rent to. But here's the trick part of the question. Who you rent to is also determined based upon what type of property it is, and also based upon where the property is located. So it's a little bit of a trick question. So here's the thing that I often say is the where you buy, what you buy, and who you put in it is almost like a Venn diagram, right? Where you have the 3 circles, and in the center of those 3 circles is the sweet spot where you want to invest your hard-earned capital and resources into it. But first we're going to do it through the 3 pillars. Let's start with who you're going to rent to. So number 1 is I want you to pick an ideal tenant profile. Many of you have different ideal tenant profiles. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I made when I got started was the following. I bought something based on how cheap it was. My only criteria was a price point. And I'll tell you what, that is a terrible criteria for having your only criteria. So number 1 was price point. Number 2 is what could it rent for? Loose, what can it rent for? And does it cash flow? That was the magic word, is does it cash flow? Does it cash flow? I never did give a consideration to the ownership experience and the tenant profile of what is the tenant profile look like that I'm going to rent to along the way. So this, what I'm going to share with you, is based upon real world research. It's based upon real world experience. It's based upon owning between myself, my business partners, and many of the clients that we've helped and served. It's based on owning the wrong properties in the wrong areas. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do is, number 1 thing is, before you take any step in buying real estate, you need to understand who your tenant profile first is. That is just business 101. If you don't know who your customer is, you will get any customer, and you may not like that customer. And that's one of the key quickest ways to failure within real estate, is putting the wrong tenant in the property. So here's what it is. Our ideal tenant profile is as follows. It's families. It's a mom, it's a dad, 1 to 2 children. It's a pet. There's usually a pet, and it's usually the pet is maybe a 1.5 to 2 years older than the first child that's been born. There is employment, right? That people are employed. Typically, one of the partners is employed in the oil field. The other has typically maybe a part-time job, or maybe even stay at home. Typically, the ideal tenant profile that we look for has about $120,000 per year income, and they have community involvement. They have roots in the community, with sports, in the church, in the schools. They're involved in the community. They're actually good stewards, good people to live in the community. So even go another step forward from here is give the people a name. Give them names. Robert and and Rose, and their kids, Marcus and Emma, and give them names, like give them a persona, like drill right down into who they are, where they shop, what they buy, because the tighter your persona is of who your ideal tenant profile is, the greater chance you have of finding that ideal tenant profile. Even going another step forward from here, they are two vehicles. Typically they have first vehicle, they have a pickup truck, maybe 1 or 2 year old pickup truck. And the other vehicle they have is either a small SUV or a minivan to haul all the gear and equipment around. In the garage, you will find that there is lots of toys, adult kid toys and kids toys. What you also find with this tenant profile is they're probably about 4 to 5 years away from home ownership. They're in transitioning to a home ownership. They're actually unbelievable tenants to take good care of the place because they're working their way towards home ownership. And then the last one is, they love summer outdoor living, right? Barbecues and fun and all that kind of wonderful stuff. And especially if you're talking about Edmonton, those long summer nights is an incredible opportunity for them to entertain at their home. So that's an ideal tenant profile. That's our TriUrban ideal tenant profile. So that's what we do when we build our houses. We actually have those people in mind, and we want to build a home for them. So that's how you get peace of mind of ownership, is knowing that the property is being built for an ideal tenant profile. Now, when I shared those ideal tenant profile for you, that sounds like a fantastic profile, doesn't it? Right? I wish I had this ideal tenant profile. I know a lot of the properties I own, I could sit there and I go, geez, I've had, a gunfire in some of my properties. Maybe I should have had no guns as part of my tenant criteria. I just had, midnight moves. I had some squatters that after a tenant moved in, the people, broke in through doors and stuff like that. It just, one thing after another. I didn't define my ideal tenant profile. If I would have taken the time back, 15 years ago to have an ideal tenant profile like this, it would have been a different ownership experience. So that's the key thing. So if you have not defined your ideal tenant profile, take the time, sit down, write it out, because here's the thing is, once you know who you're going to rent to, that then will determine the area of town you want to look in, which will then determine also the type of property. So key critical work. Don't skip this first step of identifying who your ideal tenants are. So now taking that a step forward on the ideal tenant profile, if you're talking about townhomes, typically it's a young couple. They're soon to be, soon to family, maybe pregnant, or soon to be. They're maybe transitioning into that side-by-side duplex model. And they also have fewer toys in the garage because they also have a smaller garage. So that's the townhome model. Side-by-side duplexes, they're a young family. They maybe have one small pet. They're now transitioning towards a house. They're stepping stone, the next step towards their house. They have still those community involvement, ties in the community. They have more toys in the garage, but not the full package. Then if you're talking into the suite house. Suited houses, typically there's 2 units per house. The family is living on the upstairs. The downstairs typically is a single person, a mature student, a mature individual, someone like that lives in the basement. And the key thing is having tenant compatibility. One of the things here that we do is we actually intentionally design our suited homes with only 1 bedrooms in the basement. Now some people go, well, why don't you put 2? Why don't you just maximize out the cash flow? Put two bedrooms in the basement, right? Let's just max it out. Let's get as many people in there as possible. On one hand, I agree you want to maximize your cash flow, but here's the thing. On the other side, if you actually have a family upstairs and a family downstairs, you don't have that tenant compatibility. Then also, if you have a family downstairs, you potentially have 1, 2, maybe even 3 cars down, 3 up. You're now looking 4, 5, 6 cars. Parking becomes an issue. You must match your tenant demographic and your tenant profile, or else you'll have a really bad ownership experience. And here's what I share with people is if you get the tenant profile right, 1 bedroom, mature student maybe in the basement, and a family upstairs, you actually will have less turnover, you'll have less vacancy, you'll have less disputes, you'll have less midnight moves, you'll have less phone calls, and just less hassles and headaches. So by giving up maybe $100, $150 in monthly cash flow, you will actually maybe go another 2 or 3 years without a vacancy. So where are you getting more money? You're actually getting more money by having a better tenant compatibility profile on the properties. So those are the ideal tenant profile. So do that work. Do not skip step one. Do not go past go. Do not collect $200 until you actually do that first step of the process. Then the next one we're going to get into is where you buy. Figuring out an area of town that matches your ideal tenant profile. But before we do dive into ideal tenant profile, where to buy, why is this important, right? Really, if you think about it, what you want to do is if you pick a good area, you're going to actually reduce your risk. You're going to increase your ROI if you pick the right area to invest. You're going to avoid those bad areas out there. Now, everybody always, especially for you people that are out of towners and you're looking into across the borders, whether it's from the east or the west, you're looking in and looking over there and go, well, what's going on in Alberta? You guys were down and everything was not going too rosy. Now what's going on? And the first question is people from out of town goes, what are the bad areas? I don't want to invest in those bad areas that Russell talks about. So that's one of the key things of doing some of this homework. And we provide a lot of this research. And here's the cool thing. During this section, I actually have 2 research reports that I'm going to share with you on this webinar. And if you think about it, if you actually do the homework on where and do the checklist, you will achieve your financial goals faster and easier and with less stress. Okay, so number one thing on this checklist. Now, I put the 3 asterisks on this slide just for a reason. The reason being is that's a reminder for me to pop in the checklist. I have a checklist for you that you're going to have. It's a simplified one of what I've used over the years. It's something that everybody can use. It's in all layman's terms. It is something that you do not have to have an economics background, or you don't have to, have an MBA or any of that kind of stuff. It's just something very simple that everybody on this conference call can use. So I'm going to pop that in. Make sure you download that, use that wherever possible. So number 1 step on there is going to ask you on the checklist, have you done your ideal tenant profile? Okay. Have you then identified your ideal tenant type? Okay, does your ideal tenant type match your ideal tenant profile? Where you buy is the next step. So here's where we're going to get into the checklist. So number 1 is we're going to talk about population. These are all information that you can find online. Even just a simple Google of area population numbers 2017, 2018, or latest numbers. You can actually get those pretty quickly because the key thing is you want to have people moving in. Income, are people that are moving in, are they earning more money? When it comes down to the bare bones, what I say all the time when it comes to fundamentals is as follows, is economy, what's the market doing as an economic base in a generalized sense? What are the people doing? Are they moving in? Are they moving out? Are they earning more? Are they earning less? And then the last one is housing market. So economic, people, market. Those are the 3 pillars that I really look at when it comes down to this. So let's talk about the people. Are there major employers in the area? Are the people, hiring out there? Are there job wanted? Are there more people need to be placed in? Are there future jobs coming up? Or is all the projects and all the stuff, is that all finished? So those are the kind of things, a lot of the stuff you can get just through news articles, and you can get all these kind of information. 100%, you actually don't have to leave the comfort of your home to get this kind of information. As a matter of fact, we're actually going to give you a couple research reports to help you along the way on some areas we've identified. Remember one of the pillars we talked about? Research. So we do our homework before our builders, developers put tens of millions of dollars of money into the marketplace. Research is done on that area as well. All right, so the next part on the checklist to talk about is, are there any new developments in the area? For example, when we talk about, one area there's been lots of hubbub around is Leduc. The whole Aerotropolis and the whole mall out around the airport and the new Costco and all those kind of things. So those are lots of new developments that are happening. So is there developments happening in the area that will keep employment growing? Is there shopping and retail? Everybody, your tenants will want to go to where they want to shop. That new mall out Leduc way. I'm just using that as an example. So are those amenities close by that people don't have to drive all the way across the city, that there's just going to be frustration? And that's the next one, is amenities. Are there churches? Are there community centers? Are there rec centers? Are there gyms? Are there, schools? And that's another one we will talk about very shortly. And the next one is tech providers. Here's a cool thing is go to the area. Can you get cell phone reception in the area? That's an absolute, if people can't get cell phone reception in an area, that's a big giant frustration. Or what are the levels of internet speeds that people want in there? It is it's like a utility now, internet speed. So make sure that there is some really good service providers that can provide those utilities on an ongoing basis. Schools. In some area, people move in, and I'm just talking this a little bit about more out maybe in the lower mainland of Vancouver, which I live in. Some people actually will only look at areas and schools. Some schools are known for academics. Some schools are known for their drama program. Some schools are known for their athletics. Some schools are known for, where to go to get easy grades. I don't know about that. But here's the thing, is make sure you're well aware of the schools and can it meet the upcoming demand of the people coming through. Crime, you can easily do a crime search on the city websites and find out if there is lots of crime, because one of the things that your tenants want to have, your ideal tenant profile, is they want to have a safe and secure feel. Transportation. Are there new transportation hubs being planned? Are there transportation hubs? Is there rapid bus routes? Is there rail? Is there any kind of those kind of transportation happening in the area? I know when we were last looking for a place, it was absolutely one of our daughters had on her phone the bus route app. And when we went to a place and you find out what buses come and what time and all that kind of stuff, just because you need to know when those buses come. And that was actually one of our criterias when we were looking for a new place to live. Your tenants are going to do the exact same thing. They're going to pull up the transit maps. They're going to pull up all those wonderful things. And then on the last thing on this checklist you're going to see is you're going to give it a rating. It's going to be on a scale from 0 to 10, and you can't use the number 7. Number 7 is such a pedestrian number that people sometimes just use the number 7. Just says it's a good number, it's an okay number. Your rating either needs to be, this is unbelievable, or it's bleh. And I only want you to invest in those unbelievable areas, opportunities. So on a scale from 0 to 10, and you can't use the number 7, how does this region rate? So I'm going to pop in that form for you and that checklist. So by all means, just keep using that as much as you need to. And also there's some research reports that I'll share with you very soon. So I'm going to dig a little bit of time into just talking about one area of Edmonton to avoid. And I know to avoid this area because I have personal experience in this. Some people may have other experiences of maybe some areas that aren't quite up to par, but this is one area that I would highly recommend people to avoid. Now, here's what I'm going to share with you is number one, is I actually own properties in this area. I actually own properties that I'm looking to sell in this area. So if I wanted to, I would sit there and go, yeah, this area is a fantastic region. You should buy into this area. But I have my integrity about people that I like to educate. I would highly recommend people not buy in this area. Okay, and this is an area that was coined, and the phrase was called the Black Triangle of Death. That was phrased by, I think it was Brent Davies and Chris Davies in Edmonton. It's kind of the area of town that's, the Rundle Park, Beverly, up to Alberta Avenue, no further north than the Yellowhead, and no further south than the North Saskatchewan. I own properties in this region over here, and I own quite a few of them, and tenant profile, to say the least, is a little bit challenging. So that's some areas to maybe to avoid if you're looking into Edmonton as well. The other person to talk to would be a good property manager, because they manage properties. They'd be able to give you a really good snapshot of the tenant profile in each of those. So let's talk about a couple areas that I would consider and call winners. The areas that are poised for long-term growth and appreciation based on the fundamentals. And we have some research reports I'll share with you. So number one area is Rosenthal. Rosenthal is an area of Edmonton. I would call it West Edmonton, or even like almost Southwest Edmonton. So if you think about taking the White Mud, taking it far west as you can go and crossing over the Henday, you're now getting into the Rosenthal area. This is a fantastic area, brand new Costco, new schools have been built. The development we're in right now is in phase 19, I believe, of that, and people that have got into the early phases of development have seen unbelievable they've seen fantastic growth opportunities in there, and they've seen great tenant profiles. One of the things that just had a conference call with some of our investors that just bought into the place. there. They closed on it. They threw an ad up on Kijiji. You may have seen this video I posted on our Facebook page. They threw one ad on Kijiji. You know, not my place. I would highly not recommend placing a premium ad on Kijiji, but their results speak for themselves. The phone started ringing off the hook. They had instant phone calls, instant showings. They had 3 applications within the first 3 people that came through. They rented it, and I think they're getting $3,200 all in for all their rent on their suite houses in Rosenthal. And I think the properties are renting very, very quickly there. So that's one of the things that I'm going to share with you as well. Is one of the things that we do, and I'm going to just a little bit of an aside here, one of the things we do at TriUrban is we'll only offer in our new developments and our new communities, we'll only go 30% to investors and rental properties. You know, some people may just slam in as many rental properties as possible, you know, because, you know, or they just, all they care about just the transaction. We'll sell 8 of them. We'll sell 80% of all to investors. We don't believe in that. We actually only will max out at 30% because we want to have a really good mixture of tenants and also homeowners, and we'll only go to a maximum of 30% per development that we are in, that we have control over as well. So that's the Rosenthal area of Edmonton. The next area is McConaughey. McConaughey is a really cool little area. It's in north. I'd say north, it's inside the Henday. There's a brand new development that we are putting in there. Some side-by-side duplexes. Some investors from Vancouver have got some of the first ones in there right now. When I have the asterisk beside that, that means I will pop in a research report where we have a detailed research report for you that you can download and read for that. Fort Saskatchewan is an up-and-coming area again. You know, some of the outskirts of Edmonton have seen a little bit of a dip, and you know, 2-3 years ago, Fort Saskatchewan rents were actually higher than Edmonton. Right. Okay. So here's the thing is, but they're down a little bit right now. So you're getting in at a cheaper price point than Edmonton, and rents are a little bit lower, but it has a great potential of getting up there. So stay tuned for some more information about our research report and also an upcoming development that we have going on in Fort Saskatchewan. And then Leduc. I'm going to maybe shoot a separate video on Leduc and the opportunities in Leduc. We actually have one development in West Haven, which is down right across the plot of land and an area just right across from the school. Some investors have got in there on a pre-sale program and have picked up some really good properties right now. Here's the cool thing about Leduc is you potentially can get a discount of $20,000 to $25,000, maybe $22,500 discount for the exact same property in Leduc versus what you can in Edmonton. And the reason being is because of the lot prices are a little bit cheaper. Rents are a little bit lower and a little tougher to rent at the moment, but I think that it's a for sure bet that it's going to catch on and there will be an opportunity. It's still a little bit on the speculation curve, but you get rewarded with that by getting into it with a lower price point. Okay, so that is the two of the 3 pillars. The first pillar is who you put in it, and the second pillar is where you buy. So which leaves the third pillar is what type of property are you going to invest in. One of the things that we do is we focus, because we're investors, we focus on the sweet spot, and I'll share with what that sweet spot is here for you in a bit. But before I get to that, just want to do a little bit of teaching about some of the different types of ownership. So you can actually get into 2 types of ownership. You can have a passive ownership experience, where that'd be like you have an interest in the property. You know, it's a REIT, a share is in an offering memorandum. Maybe you're a lender. Maybe you're in a joint venture relationship. Or you can actually have a direct ownership where you actually control the property. You own the title. You have a little bit more involvement into the property from there. So it's either a passive or a direct ownership. So the different types of real estate investment opportunities are as follows. So you can get into industrial properties, which is, you know, manufacturing or warehouses or production facilities. Those are industrial properties. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and profess that I know everything about those. I'm just sharing that those are an opportunity. I like residential properties, but I know people that have done very well with industrial properties. Then you can talk about commercial properties, and that's, you know, shopping centers, medical buildings, hotels, and apartments. Now, I put some asterisks beside the apartments because apartments can fit into 2 different categories. It can fit into the commercial property and also into residential as well. The third type on this is land, right? You can actually have farmland or ranch land, or even maybe you're a developer yourself, where you're starting the process that you're buying by the yard, selling by the foot, and you're actually going through the process to get properties available to subdivide and then do the development process. The one challenging thing about land that I find, unless you have a system that you can do it, is land typically doesn't have a cash flow component. You typically don't get paid unless it's a farmland, or maybe you have oil well, or you have a golf course, or you have something on it. It typically doesn't pay the bills, or it doesn't pay well in the cash flow, but you have to have lots of margins in order to develop it, and then that's where you make your money on the development as well. Next one here is residential properties. Now I'm going to break the residential properties into two things. I'm going to break it into single family, which is 1 to 4 units, and then apartments, which is 5 or more. Okay, and that's typically the bank way of separating out the properties on how financing is. So it's typically 1 to 4 units is a single family, 5 plus is an apartment. So here's something. I was sitting down in this very office here, actually very office over here in this whiteboard, and I was deciding, how do I best describe this? How do I best simplify this for most people to have how do you make the decision? And it really comes down to two things. It comes down to money. How much money do you have? And it comes down to your time. Time versus money. And another way of putting it is time is the experience that you have. If you have limited funds and no time, you don't want to get into the far high end, into the deep end of buying apartment buildings, which is a lot of time and a lot of money, for example. So I sat down and I wrote out this very rudimentary diagram. I actually shot an entire video. It's about a 7-minute video. Maybe I'll pop that into the webinar here as well for you to watch at another time. It's called the residential money versus time purchase matrix. So put yourself in here, but where you fit on the time versus experience. Now here's the really crux of this, is that majority investors who we work with, the professionals, the people that have the capital, people that want to invest in real estate, people that have a family, that have a job, a career. Maybe you're an engineer, maybe you own an accounting firm, maybe you're a doctor, you have a thriving business on the side. You don't want to take on another entire job. You don't want to take on another entire career. You don't want to take on that. So the sweet spot that we have found for that demographic of people who value a professional approach, who value a professional service, of a done-for-you service, is right in that townhome, side-by-side duplexes, and suited house. Okay, I'm going to talk about each of these individually here very shortly, but that's the sweet spot for the majority of people that want to invest in real estate, that have the capital, that want to move forward, and that they're a professional looking for a professional service. So that's what we found there as well. So like I said, I'll pop that video in there for as well. So new construction. Now, all of these ones I highly recommend are new construction properties, because it is a completely different ownership experience of owning a new construction property. On part 2 of this webinar series, I'm going to talk about the new real estate paradigm of looking about new construction versus older properties, and do a pro and con of each, and actually do a really big dive, deep dive case study into new construction versus what I would call older resale properties. So that's part 2 of this series as well. So if you think about it, the townhomes, they're lower price points, low to mid 300s. They're a little bit lower on the cash flow because there's condo fees typically with that, and there's less management, less involvement from your part, which can be a really good thing if you're a really extremely busy out of town person. The next one here is really, this is my business partner Jason. This is his bread and butter properties, is the side-by-side duplex. I'm actually going to do a case study, and he's a living example of a case study right now of he buys both sides. So he owns both sides, 3-bedroom, 2-bath on one side, 3-bedroom, 2-bath on the other. He owns both sides. And we're actually going to do a case study on how he's going to own his portfolio of properties free and clear within 15 years. So that's going to be probably step 3 of the webinar process as well. So new construction side-by-side duplexes, you're mid 350s, maybe up to 370, 380. You have a little bit better cash flow. There's a little bit more involvement from management. You know, I've started to have a little bit more yard maintenance. You have to have a little bit more interaction with the tenants. There's a little bit more involved with the management. And then on the far end of the sweet spot, and I highly recommend you just stick within the townhomes side-by-sides and suited homes, is that you're talking about a suite house. You're typically talking a price point around $490 plus, right around the $500,000 mark in Edmonton. You know, when I say that to people from Vancouver, yeah, it's about $500,000. They go, oh, that's not a bad down payment. No, that's the entire purchase price. You can actually buy a property in Vancouver. Average house price is what, $1.8 million? You could take the exact same $1.8 million into Edmonton and own what, 4 suited houses. Those 4 suited houses would probably generate you what, $12,000 gross revenue. And you're probably in your jeans on those months that you don't have cash flow or maintenance or vacancies or any of those kind of things. You're probably pocketing what, $2,200 cash flow, $3,000 a month cash flow net into your pocket. So, you know, maybe I'll share another video on that of just for people from Vancouver if you're interested on having a comparison between what an average house in Vancouver can get versus the average house in Edmonton as maybe a rental property as well. So if you think about it, those are really the 3 pillars of real estate. You know, where you buy, what you buy, and who you put in it. So that's the key thing to this game of real estate, is make the process easy. You know, it's not rocket science. It's a systematic step-by-step approach. Now, I had wished that I had had this presentation when I first got started. I might have hit the pause on a few things, and I might have, even if I would have just asked one question, then one question I would have asked was, who is my ideal tenant profile? If I would have given that a little bit more thought, and I would have maybe treated it like a business at that time, instead of just, you know, getting ego in the way and just buying property for the sake of buying it. The key thing is, if you actually design the process, real estate can be very easy. And that's one of the things that we've learned with our team at TriUrban, is that we've taken the time. We've taken years and, you know, painstakingly taken years. And mainly my business partner, Jason, who has painstakingly taken the years of trial and error to perfect this model about new construction properties. And not every market in Canada works with new construction. So Edmonton's a little bit of an oasis in there. If you're starving for thirst, if you're out in Vancouver or out in Toronto, you're out of town marketplace, and you're starving, you know, even lower mainland of BC, Chilliwack and Amsterdam, you're starving for finding cash flow properties. You know, come on, take a look at Edmonton. It's a fantastic opportunity. When I do pass it back to Russell, he's going to share a little bit of information about maybe some next steps for you, what works for you. If any of you are interested in doing the onboarding process of finding out if any of these properties make sense for you, that's the next step for you. So that's the formalized video portion of this presentation. I've had a blast of doing this, and there's going to be so much more. I've made a commitment to turn it on this stupid video camera almost every day, and I'm going to share as much knowledge as I had. I'm making a commitment to just jump on a video camera. I don't care if it's pretty. I don't care if the lights are good or sound. You know what? I have a message, and we have a message to share, and we're going to do our part to sharing that. So I'm going to pass this back to Russell, and he's going to take in the next part of this webinar. All right, guys, thank you very much. Talk to you soon.